Have you ever wanted to disappear? To delete all your social media accounts in the middle of the night, move to another city or country, cut all ties with friends and family, and just start a completely new life? Even if you haven't had such thoughts yourself, someone among your friends or acquaintances definitely has. And that's normal. Psychology has long studied this phenomenon. According to research, many people feel overwhelmed by all the modern world's pleasures. We are bombarded daily with negative news on social media. Our constant connection with gadgets makes us feel trapped with an overwhelming desire to escape from all this modernity. To escape in order to be alone, to recover, and in some sense, to heal. And yes, it would be strange if this was only considered in certain countries. But no, people think about it everywhere. In Japan, for example, such people are called Jyohatsu, or the evaporated. And in this video, I will explain how ordinary people manage to disappear without a trace. Why families and the police turn a blind eye to it, where exactly they disappear to, and why they decide to take this step. And of course, how they survive. Let's start. I am sure almost every one of us has had at least once in our life the desire to disappear, to go to another city or country, to start life anew, so that no one knows where you are. Now imagine that you did it. You left home without leaving a single explanation to your relatives. Where would you want to go? Most likely, it would be a place that is as peaceful as possible, or on the contrary, a big city full of opportunities. But Jyohatsu have slightly different preferences. No, not exactly. They have almost no other choice but the place we will discuss later. These people may be indistinguishable from ordinary ones. They go to work, to school, live a normal life, but at one moment they disappear. In Japan, the cult of shame and reputation flourishes. There is a lot of overwork. A person's psyche may simply not withstand the pressure from family, management, or society. Shame for unmet expectations from family or employer is more terrifying for Japanese people than death. When feelings become unbearable, some decide to say goodbye to life, while others just disappear without a note or explanation. Shame for unmet expectations from family or employers is more terrifying for Japanese people than death. When feelings become unbearable, some decide to say goodbye to life, while others just disappear without a note or explanation. The family does not turn to the police due to shame to avoid disgrace. Although this phenomenon is rarely spoken about openly, most Japanese people know that Jyohatsu exist. Admitting that there is such a person in your family means being humiliated in the eyes of society. Even if the police are contacted in such cases, they can do little to help. They will not intervene unless it involves a crime or an accident. If there is no evidence of a criminal act, the police do not have the right to provide relatives with call logs or surveillance footage. The personal lives of people in Japan are well protected, and there is still no unified database of missing persons. Do relatives really not worry, and don't they want to find their loved ones? The topic of Jyohatsu, as mentioned above, is taboo in Japan. But one family from Tokyo made their search for their son public despite the taboo. Their son Naori disappeared on May 3, 2002. After saying goodbye to his parents, 24-year-old Naori warned them not to expect him for dinner. After that, the young man did not appear at home for several days. The parents started to worry only when they received a call from the Tokyo Ferry Company, informing them that their son's backpack had been found on a ferry that had reached the final stop of its route. The parents' contact information was recorded in Naori's documents, but the young man was nowhere to be found. The ferry workers assured that he had not taken his own life. They would have certainly noticed someone jumping into the water. Perhaps he got off at an earlier stop, or maybe he brought his belongings on board to mislead the search. The police refused to investigate the case because there were no facts indicating that a crime had occurred. The family did not have the money for a private detective, so Naori's brother Tsuyoshi began his own investigation. For 7 years, he found nothing. Naori's parents wrote letters to the mayor of Tokyo and even to the Prime Minister of Japan, asking them to address the issue of missing persons more actively. They launched petitions demanding that the police spend more time distributing flyers and reports about missing persons. Several times, the family of the missing young man was invited to television shows, but there was no news from their son. His mother also said that most people who search for their loved ones do so secretly. This practice of misleading traces is common. French journalist Lena Morga learned about this phenomenon in 2008 and dedicated 5 years of her life to studying it. She wrote a book that compiles the stories of various people she managed to find. At first, many refused her or avoided answering, saying that such people do not exist in the country, that Jyohatsu is just a legend. Initially, she couldn't even hire a translator. When Japanese translators learned what topic they would be working on, they politely refused to cooperate. But eventually, she found someone who agreed to help her with the investigation. It was 50-year-old Jun, a specialist in the Yakuza topic. He acted as a translator and also helped her find a public company that assists in searching for the missing. In addition to such services, there are so-called night movers in Japan. These companies help people escape and cover their tracks. Or, on the contrary, they stage robberies in homes, simulating a break-in. Since, from a legal standpoint, there is nothing illegal about Jyohatsu, a whole industry has formed around it. Thousands of companies help people disappear. Some even have their own websites. Hattori, the owner of one such company, explained how he got into this business. Initially, he had an ordinary transportation company that helped people move. But one day, a stranger approached him in a bar and asked for his help to disappear. Her husband was drowning in debt, and she feared he would ruin her life too. Hattori agreed. After that, the man posted an advertisement that his company helps people disappear. Potential clients quickly caught on, and soon Hattori could barely keep up with the orders for night moves. He charged 3 times more than for a regular move. Later, Hattori wrote a book about it. He admitted that he does not consider people who decided to disappear cowards. On the contrary, he believes he helped them find a way to a better life. Since he was born and raised in Japan, Hattori could fully understand the prevalent culture of shame, obedience, and reputation. So he understands the motives and feelings of people who decide to take this step. This is the extreme level of despair when a person sees no other way out except to escape. The journalist also spoke with another owner of a similar company, Miho Saita, who, like Hattori, believes she is helping people. She herself once ran away from a past that left her with a scar on her cheek. Saita recounts that there were no laws protecting victims of domestic violence at that time. The police could only ask the abuser not to do it again. The disappearances organized by these companies usually happen under the cover of night. Often, the employees helping people disappear pretend to be movers or a repair crew. They arrive at the client's house in an unmarked truck, close the windows, and help quickly pack and load all belongings. Within just a couple of hours, this person vanishes. The companies help people settle in a new place and do everything to make them untraceable. But if a person decides to return to their previous life, no one will stop them. These companies only fulfill their duties. If a person wants to return, they can. However, Jyohatsu rarely return to their families, depending on the complexity of their circumstances. The cost of such services can range from a few hundred to several tens of thousands of dollars. Those Japanese who do not have enough money for such services have to disappear on their own, using published guides. The reasons can vary widely. Some people don't want to go through the bureaucratic hell of signing a bunch of papers, so it's easier to disappear than to go through a divorce. Some lose a large sum in gambling. Some even leave their small children with their spouse. Some flee from domestic violence, which the police used to ignore. Some are tied to religious sects and decide to break ties and free themselves this way. There have been cases where young people disappeared due to failed exams, as they could not bear the shame and dishonor that weighed on them. The largest number of disappearances occurs during global financial crises. People get into debt just to feed themselves and their families. Annual interest rates on microloans could exceed 100%. Those who did not repay on time were threatened, and their debt amount was increased even more. Some of these loan companies were owned by the mafia, so a term mikin emerged among the people, referring to money borrowed from the yakuza. So where do these Japanese people go? Is it true that people manage to start a better life after disappearing? Unfortunately, this is more of an exception. Not many wealthy people have enough money for a beautiful new life. The overwhelming majority settle in the Sanya district. It is often called the ghetto that doesn't exist. You won't find this district on any official maps, and from a legal standpoint, it doesn't exist at all. Tokyo, the capital of Japan, is one of the most high-tech cities in the world. Among the beautiful modern skyscrapers, streets with neon signs, and traditional temples, there is the ghetto district of Sanya. Almost the entire area consists of extensive slums. People here have to live in tiny, dirty hotel rooms. These rooms usually lack internet, private bathrooms, and many of the conditions necessary for comfortable living. In some of these lodging houses, tenants are forbidden from speaking loudly after 6 p.m. Many of the Japanese who have fled to this area live like illegal immigrants, even though they remain citizens of their country. They take on any hard, low-paying jobs. Moreover, this area is truly controlled by the infamous Yakuza, the local Japanese mafia. Among the Japanese living in such conditions, some join the Yakuza. The Sanya district becomes their new home, and the likelihood that someone will come here looking for them is very small. Yes, perhaps few relatives will come here searching for a missing person, but some tourists or foreign journalists do. Due to its notorious reputation, the Sanya district has some degree of popularity. Here are a few stories of people that journalist Lena managed to find in this district. She met with each of them personally to record their stories. 50-year-old Norihiro arranged his disappearance 10 years ago. At that time, he worked as an engineer and had a wife and son. But when he was fired, he didn't dare tell his family. Instead, every day for a week, he got up in the morning, put on a suit, leather shoes, took a briefcase and left the house, pretending to go to work as usual. On payday, he shaved neatly, said goodbye to his wife, and getting on the subway, disappeared. He never returned to that area again and never saw his family. It pains me to think about how my parents looked for me. I hope they are doing well. Maybe they still believe that I will return. Or maybe they have already passed away, reflects the aged man after 10 years, now engaged in hard, low-paying labor. Norihiro lives in a dilapidated workers' hotel in an empty room without windows. The floor is covered with torn tatami. "There are thousands like me in Sanya," says Norihiro. 20-year-old Masao did not return home after being released from prison. He said he didn't want his parents to feel ashamed of him and moved to Sanya. He was convinced that it was better for his relatives not to look for him and to think he was dead. Martial arts master Ichiro married optimistically and made plans for the future with his wife Tomoko. They lived in their own house in Saitama, a prestigious southern suburb of Tokyo. Their firstborn, Tim, was born there. The family took out a loan to open a dumpling shop, but when the financial crisis hit, the family business failed. The couple did what many other Japanese do in similar circumstances. They sold their house, packed their things, and disappeared forever. It's a strange state of existence, living outside the bounds of civilization in one of the most developed cities in the world. But recently, this area has started to improve a bit. Many cheap hotels have sprung up. More and more people are learning about Jyohatsu and this district every day, including you. This presents a chance to profit from the tourism boom, but whether the lives of the disappeared become any easier remains a rhetorical question. Thank you very much for watching.